Going through. Okay, so you're gonna edit it out, yeah? Okay. Thanks for tuning in. I want to thank Hanoch again for coming over and spearheading this effort. So this week's Parsha is Parshas Va'era, and the saga continues. If you keep in mind that at the end of last week's Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a total failure. He comes to Parai, not only doesn't it make it better, it makes it worse. And the Jews are upset, and Moshe is upset. And this week's Parsha begins with the Rebbi Shalom kind of talking to Moshe and telling him, look, this is part of the master plan. Sometimes it's got to get worse before it can get better. And one of the things that he says to him in the pasuk here is, "V'gam ani shamati es nakas b'nei Yisrael," and also I have heard the pleas and the cries of the b'nei Yisrael. So they tell a story about this fellow who came to the Chassam Sofer, and he wasn't doing well financially. His business was suffering, and he came like Jews would come throughout the generations and still continue to do this practice, is to get a bracha, to get a blessing from the holy Chassam Sofer. And the Chassam Sofer says to him, listen, I hear that you have a brother who's really on difficult times, and he's not doing well at all financially, and he has a lot of issues going on. And the guy says, yeah, that's also true, but I'm suffering and I don't have any money. So the Chassam Sofer said to him this pasuk, V'gam ani, the Rebbi Shalom says, V'gam ani shamati, and also I have heard. What's the V'gam? And also, what's the V'gam? So he said like this, the Jews in Mitzrayim were horrific. It was a Holocaust. Children were being taken away from the parents, slave labor, people were dying left and right. We don't have a concept of it because, we can't see it, we can't maybe picture it in our eyes, but it was really horrific. And each family was suffering. But what was going on at the same time that they were suffering, they looked around at their brethren, at their neighbors, at their family, and they said, wow, that guy's also suffering. And when they cried out to the Rebbi Shalom, even though it was horrific, but they didn't just cry for themselves. They cried for their other family members. They cried for their neighbors. They cried for other Jews, for complete strangers. And the Rebbi Shalom says, V'gam, the V'gam, when the Jew cried out to Hashem and said, Rebbi Shalom, I'm suffering, and also V'gam, my neighbor is suffering. The Rebbi Shalom is V'gam ani shamati. I heard the V'gam. I didn't hear that they cried about themselves. What motivated me to act on behalf of the Jew was because the Jew cried out for another Jew. And that's what the Chassam Sofer told this fellow. Yeah, you're having a hard time. But just because you're having a hard time, you should be more sensitive to others that are having a hard time as well. And this is another piece in the puzzle that has kept us going throughout Galus, throughout exile and oppression and suffering and anti-Semitism. It's the V'gam, not just what we care about for ourselves, but that when we cry to the Rebbi Shalom, we seek a solution V'gam for the other fella as well. Thanks for listening. There you go.
It's a little bit fast.